For this section, we're going to be looking at the idea that when two things multiply, I'm going to call it A and B. When two things multiplied equals 0, so when there are two factors and they multiply to 0, or many factors, as long as the product is 0, one of the factors has to be 0. So if A times B equals 0, either A equals 0 or B equals 0. And that's going to help us to solve. Now we're going to be looking for the value of the x term or the y term, the value of the variable that makes this statement true. For these cases, they are already factors, so I'm going to let each of my factors equal to 0. I'm going to say x plus 3 is equal to 0, and I'm going to say 2x minus 1 is equal to 0. Let each of your factors equal to 0. Then we're just going to solve the way we always solve. I'm going to separate my things through the equal sign. My positive 3, I'm going to subtract 3 on the other side. Right? I move it to the other side and switch the sign. We have that x is equal to negative 3. So my first solution is negative 3. Now, looking at the other equation, I'm going to separate through the equal sign. My minus 1, I'm going to add it on the other side. So I have the 2x is equal to 1. Divide both sides by 2. X is equal to 1/2. Those are going to be my two solutions. And I have more than one solution. Looking at example B, the y on the outside, that's technically our greatest common factor. So it is a factor. I'm going to let all my factors equal to 0. So I get y equals to 0. And I'm going to say that 3y minus 4 is equal to 0. My first equation is already solved. The second equation, my minus 4, I'm going to move it as a plus 4 on the other side. So I get that 3y is equal to 4. To get the y by itself, divide both sides by 3. And I'm going to get y is equal to 4/3. Now, in this case, we have it that the right side is not equal to 0. I need to have the right side is equal to 0. So my minus 6, I'm going to move it to this side. I'm going to move it to the other side of the equation. To the other side of the equal sign. So I will switch the sign of the 6. So let me write this as x squared minus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. I did switch the sign of the 6 because I moved it from one side to the other side of the equal sign. I'm going to factor this equation. However you do it with the x thing, we're going to end up saying that our factors are x minus 2 and x minus 3. I factored my trinomial, that way we know how to factor. So I'm going to let each of my factors equal to 0. X minus 2 equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. On my first one, let me add 2. So I get that x is equal to 2. On the second one, let me add 3. So I get x is equal to 3. For example B, I'm going to move everything to the left. So I have y squared minus y minus 20 is equal to 0. Right? We know how to factor. Do the x thing or however we do it. I'm going to end up factoring this as y minus 5, y plus 4. So we know how to factor by now. Now that we know the factors, let each of your factors equal to 0. Y minus 5 equals to 0. Y plus 4 equals to 0. I'm going to add 5. So y is equal to 5. I'm going to subtract 4. So y is equal to negative 4. Same thing here. I'm looking at the special cases. I have a binomial. The right side is equal to 0. So I can rewrite this as 4m all squared minus 5 squared is equal to 0. I know the difference of the squares. They factor to 4m plus 5 and 4m minus 5. I'm going to let each of my factors equal to 0. I'm going to say 4m plus 5 is equal to 0. I'm also going to say 4m minus 5 is equal to 0. In my first equation, let me subtract 5. 4m is equal to negative 5. Divide both sides by 4. M is equal to negative 5 over 4. On my second equation, let me add 5. So I get that 4m is equal to 5. So m must be equal to 5 over 4. Once again, the key is that the right side is equal to 0. So for example B, I'm going to say y squared minus 2y is equal to 0. I move the 2y over. Looking at the binomial, I'm going to factor out a greatest common factor. So y on the inside, y minus 2. This is equal to 0. So my two factors, I'm going to say y equals to 0, which gives me an answer already. The other factor, I'm going to say y minus 2 equal to 0. That means y must be equal to 2. Now on my example C, I see that there is a parentheses. So do get rid of parentheses before you let one of the sides equal to 0. So I'm going to write 2k squared plus 5k is equal to 3. Once again, I distribute the k to get rid of parentheses, move the 3 to the left side. So I'm going to say 2k squared plus 5k minus 3 is equal to 0. Do practice on your factoring. So again, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply equals -6. Added is equal to 5. So I'm thinking of 6 and a -1. That is how I'm going to split my middle term. So I have 2k squared plus 6k minus 1k minus 3 is equal to 0. On the first two terms, let me factor a 2k out. So I have k plus 3. On the last two terms, let me factor the -1 side out. So I have k plus 3. My factors are going to be k plus 3 and 2k minus 1. So to solve this, let each of your two factors equal to 0. I'm going to say k plus 3 equals 0. And I'm also going to say 2k minus 1 is equal to 0. And my first one, let me subtract 3. So k is equal to -3. The second one, let me start by adding 1. So I get that 2k is equal to 1. Divide both sides by 2. K is equal to 1/2. Looking at case A, we do know how to check if it's a perfect squared. The square root of z squared is z. The square root of 121 is 11. Multiply do give me the half of the middle term. So I have this that z minus 1 all squared is equal to 0. We're going to have what this thing says is I have the same parentheses twice, z minus 11. So for my equation, I'm just going to do it once. If z minus 11 is equal to 0, I get that z is equal to 11. In this case, I don't get two solutions. I just get the same answer twice. I'm not going to do both parentheses. I'm not going to do the same thing twice. I'm going to say z is equal to 11. Same thing for b. I'm going to move the 25, the negative to the -25 to the left side. So I have 9t squared minus 30t plus 25 is equal to 0. Remember the 25 move sides, that's why I changed the sign. I do the square root of the first term, that gives me 3t. I do the square root of 25, and I check that multiply 3t times 5 give me the half of the middle term. So I do have a perfect square. 3t minus 5 all squared is equal to 0. I'm just going to do this equation. 3t minus 5 is equal to 0. I'm going to add 5. I get that 3t is equal to 5. To get the t by itself, divide both sides by 3. And t, in this case, happens to be 5/3. Looking at these, first I can factor a 6z out. Now I'm going to have z squared minus 1, and all of it is equal to 0. My parentheses, that looks like the difference of the squares. I can even look at this as z squared minus 1 squared. So I do have the 6z out. And my parentheses, I'm going to split it as z plus 1